Welcome back to my class. So to continue from our last lecture, so where we discussed about income effect and also income consumption curves, and then how it impacts on the overall demand curve, and we discuss in context of normal goods and also in context of inferior goods. Let's now move to price effect and price consumption curve. We already discussed about the income effect and income consumption curve. As we know that as one individual's income increases or decreases, it has the impact on the overall demand for the commodity. Likewise, price, whether price is falling or there is a rise in price of that particular commodity, that also has impact on the overall quantity demanded and also overall consumption of that particular commodity. Therefore, price effect is one of the very powerful indicators for understanding the functional relationship between the price and the quantity demanded for any particular commodity. Say again, there are two commodities X and Y, and let us assume that price of X, what is Px, falls, and it can also be increased, and that in that particular case we also know that how budget line and utility shifts. So let's have a graphical illustration. On the horizontal axis, let us take X, and then on the vertical axis, let us take commodity Y. And commodity X and Y, as we know that it could be any kind of goods. X could be food, and Y could be clothes, and then you can have and keeping all other factors constant, we can understand how X and Y means clothes and food are related, and what are the substitution and income effects. And then we also know optimization conditions. From utility we get marginal rate of substitutions, and from budget line we can get price ratio, and that's how we get the tangent point. I'm just reiterating the points that we had discussed and what are important to even remember now. So let's say the initial budget line, say AB, here, and here is like say tangent point, like utility curve that we get, and then say point small a. At point A we get the tangent point where marginal rate of substitutions and the price ratio, they are actually equals to each other, and that is our optimization point. And now the condition is, let's assume that price of X has falls, and as we know from the properties of the budget line, if price of any commodity falls, the budget line will be flatter, and we know that how it it fell down, and therefore new budget line, since price of Y is not changing, because we are keeping all other things remain constant, and therefore we have we only price of X is sensitive, and it has power to change for the overall overall quantity demand. So new budget line is AB dash. So certainly people will consume more in case of normal goods, and then further say again price further fell down, and budget line further shifts to say rightward and to AB double dash, and here we get higher utility. So new tangent point is C, and this is what ABC, C is giving higher utility than B and C, and B is giving higher utility than A, and this is because of the price of the commodity, say X, has decreased. And then just like income consumption curve, here since price of that particular commodity is falling, constantly falling, and then we get new equilibrium points or utility maximization points, and if we join them and then we get the price consumption curve. And so price consumption curve, it shows the combination of all the points, and here points are like utility maximization points, where we have tangent point from utility and budget line due to fall in the price or due to changes in the price, right. So here the example that we had taken in case of fall in price, one can also take the example of rise in price. So any changes in the price, it will also change the consumption pattern, and that particular combinations is referred to as price consumption curve. And the changes that we got it, so changes that we got it here, like price, like from A to B, it is due to changes in the price, and therefore A to AB or BC or AC, so all these are called as price effect. So this is very important for us to recollect, because this we have to use frequently, and then it is also very important in overall price of say public policy or overall cost and benefit analysis. So now let's move to income effects and substitutions effect in case of normal goods. So now the first, as I said, that price changes in price is one of the most powerful factors for overall quantity demanded or overall consumptions of that particular commodity. Therefore a change in price has both income effect and substitutions effect. So here we will try to understand only how it changes from graphical illustration. Substitution effect is basically the change in consumption of good associated with a change in the price with the level of utility held constant. And the income effect changes in the consumption of a good resulting from an increase in purchasing power with relative prices held constant. So that is what precisely income effect and substitution effects are. So substitutions effect also we can understand from simple marginal rate of substitutions point of view. As we already discussed, from marginal rate of substitution we know that we can if total utility that we derive from that two commodities, it will be say same on all the points on the indifference curve or utility curves between two commodities. So here we are trying to discuss substitution effects and income effects and price effects with regard to price and quantity demanded for one commodity, but then of course we will show in case of two commodities. So let's consider this normal goods, and then let's draw, and then with the help of graphical illustration it will be much sort of easier to understand. Like say AB is the initial budget line, and then we have say utility, and here say A, small a is the first tangent point. So now again the example that we are taking in case of when price of x like Px falls. So if it falls, then the new budget line that we get, and budget line will be flatter, and say new utility curve, and small b is our new tangent point. At point A, small a, we have x1 amount of quantity, and when we get the new budget line and new tangent point, say point B, we have x2 amount of quantity of x. So AB is price effect, or we can call it total effect here. So now here there are couple of points. So here if say price x falls, which means x becomes cheaper, right? And then that will also reflect on our income, because then I am spending less money to buy x, and in this particular context, although my it will impact on the price, my income, but then in real term income remains the same, like overall income hasn't increased. It's just like if I buy x, the overall price has increased, decreased, and therefore one can buy more amount of x. But then if I don't buy, and then obviously it will also impact on my income. So there is an income effect as well. So in this particular case, like say we have the parallel budget line to a b dash, which is d, say d and d dash, and we get new point, say point C, and here you can see x3. So here there are 2 points, C to B, and the other point is A to C. So A to C is substitution effects. Why? Because we are on the same utility curve, which is like initial utility curve, which is U1, and A and C are both are on the same indifference curve, and therefore even though the movement I am buying more of x because there is a fall in price of x, but then here one can also see like quantity of y also reducing, like from y1 to y2, but then we have more amount of x1 to x3 because x1 to x3 due to fall in price, but then utility that earlier that I got it from point A with the combination of x1 and y1, and here with the fall of price of x, but then new point of C with a combination of say y2 and x3 is basically the substitution effect, because we are substituting but then same having the same utility. The other point is C tangent point to B tangent point. This is basically due to income effect. So in this particular case, like total effect, like total effect, we can write total effect. So total effect is equals to A to C, which is x1, x2 is basically the substitution effect, plus x3 to x2 is like C to B is our like say income effect. So we have to remember that in case of normal goods, substitution effects and income effects both are moving towards the same direction, and total effect is a combination of substitution effect and income effect. So now let's move to the next case. What happens in income effect, price effect and substitution effects in case of inferior goods, and by definition inferior goods is if quantity, I mean those goods whose demand will be decreasing as individuals' income increases. So let's again take the graphical representations, and this illustration will give us better understanding. Like say again two commodities y and x along with the horizontal axis and y along with the vertical axis. So here the initial budget line, and then say U1, and again the case is price of x, when price of x falls, then budget line becomes flatter, and then we get the new tangent point. So on U1 we get small a is the tangent point where U1 is tangent to initial budget line AB, and now with the changes in the price we get the higher tangent point, say point B, where U2 is tangent to new budget line which is AB dash. A is of course A and B is the total effect or price effect, and in this case we have x1 amount of quantity demanded for x, and B is amount again higher demand for x because price of x falls. So now we have of course U2 is a higher utility than U1. So but then in case of inferior goods, budget line will be shifting to this point. So we have new budget line D and D dash, and we have one more point, let's say here is point C, and then we have again higher level of x. So but then here we have to understand carefully in case of inferior goods, like what is the income effect and what is the substitution effects. So as you see, like point A and C both are on the same utility curve, on the same indifference curve, and therefore A to C is substitution effect, and C to B is our income effect. So in this case, in case of inferior commodities, you can see like total effect, like price effect is like say AB, like total effect is, or price effect is equals to substitution effects A to C, like say AC minus BC. So it's basically in terms of quantity amount, like price effect is like x1 x2 is equals to x1 x3 minus x2 x3. So this is nothing, it's like price effect or total effect is equals to x1 x3 is substitution effect minus income effect. So substitution effect is much more stronger as compared to income effect, and substitution effects is going towards the like in one direction, and for income effect it goes to the opposite direction because it is going back to the previous. So this will be in case of inferior goods, where total effect is equals to substitution effect minus income effect. In case of normal goods, total effect equals to substitution effect and income effect. Now let's move to some of the exceptional cases where important to understand, like given goods, like inferior goods, type of inferior goods where demand increases as price increases, because the income effect outweighed the substitution effects. And in inferior goods we have seen that income effect is like, you know, less stronger than the substitution effects. Like say, you know, as price rises, then, you know, demand for that particular goods also will increase. In case of Veblen goods, here luxury goods where higher prices you know, increase desirability because they you know, they signal the status or the wealth, and also the, you know, class or the prestige value that we kind of discussed. For the necessities or the essential medicines, goods where demand is price inelastic and may not fall even price rise, we will again discuss in case of elasticity explanations. Like say some of the essential commodities, like some of the life saving medicines are very, very, you know, important. Irrespective of the prices, people will actually buy it. So speculative goods where buyers expect future price to be you know, increased, and therefore they will buy more and more and try to hoard it on the current price. So I'll stop here. So in this particular lecture, the aim was to introduce a lot of, you know, conceptual points, especially, you know, in case of demand curve and demand functions. In this particular week we tried to, you know, explain this. So I'll stop here with these references, and I hope this will helpful for you. And then in our next lecture we'll try to understand the supply behaviors and then other important, you know, economic indicators or components which will give us more understanding to understand different types of commodities and how they interact to each other, and then in the market how demand and supply, they are actually, you know, intersecting to each other, and we are and price are getting determined, and how we are actually making the decision to buy certain commodities and how they are you know, being supplied by the producers. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'll look forward to see you in my next lecture.